Hello and welcome back to Jenna Gets Creative. Today we're doing a mandala tutorial. I am not doing the crazy, intricate, shaded, dark mandalas that you might see on Instagram and other social medias. I am doing mandalas that are more suited to be colored afterward, mostly because I am hoping to compile a coloring book. So this tutorial is showing you how I lay out my paper for a mandala and just kind of a sped up walkthrough of actually drawing one of my mandalas. So you're going to need something to draw on and something to draw with, obviously. I'm using Canson XL Mixed Media paper, but absolutely any paper will do, depending on what you want to do with the mandala after, and whether or not you are adding color. I am also using Staedtler Mars Lumograph pencils for my shape preparation, and I will be going over it with Staedtler Pigment Liners. These are my preferred pigment liners for mandalas, but again, anything will do. I am also going to be doing some guidelines with a Prismacolor Col-Erase pencil, and very importantly, you will need a ruler and a compass. I use just your basic out of the school geometry set compass. You can get more expensive fancy ones that lock into place at particular angles. If you've got that, cool. If you don't, just go down to the dollar store and get a school compass. So here we go. This is the part you normally don't see when I post a mandala video. This is me marking the center lines and the border. I'm using the grid on my mat, but if you don't have a mat like this, just use your ruler. Borders obviously are optional. I think it makes the piece look cleaner, but the center lines are absolutely very important. Do remember to mark your center lines. Again, these are the Prismacolor Col-Erase pencils. You don't need to use these. I like to use them because they are erasable. Normally I would use the blue because that's the non-photo blue, so anything that doesn't erase is not likely to be picked up by my scanner. But today, for instructional purposes, we are using the red so that you can see it better. Now here I am using a protractor to mark off the 45-degree angle in each quadrant because I want 8 guidelines. However many guidelines you want, just do the math on your protractor or eyeball it. However you want to do it, mark them out. Now we're going to put in some circle guides using the compass. The exact radius of your circles really does not matter. Just go for it. If you want them to be exact and you don't have one of those fancy locking compasses, use your ruler. Measure the radius. It's that simple. When I get to the point where the circle is bigger than the paper, I like to just rock the pencil back and forth in the spot where the area where it's needed, and just don't worry about it. I like to ink the border first if I'm going to use a border, just so I know exactly where to stop with all of the mandala lines as they get close to that edge. So I'm going to show you the first 2 layers in slower speed here, and then we'll kick it into a much higher speed. What I like to do when I'm doing these mandalas that are going to hopefully go into the coloring book and I need them to be exact, is I rough out the shape with pencil, and then I ink the final shape I want. You can erase all of the extra sketchy stuff later. When I do quick little doodly mandalas in my travel sketchbook, I skip the pencil. So here I'm making an 8-petal flower shape out of teardrops, and as you saw, I just made circles that filled the outer part of the circle, or quadrant section, you know what I mean, and completed the teardrop along those straight guides that I drew. For the second layer, I'm doing a sort of petal shape, so I'm drawing a curved line from corner to corner, and then I will go back and do the same curved line in the opposite corners. And now inking just the outside of the shape. And using the remaining pencil sketch lines to approximate these curved closures on each of the leafy petal shapes. Alright, so now we're in super fast mode, and it's going to be pretty impossible to talk about every single piece. I'll point out interesting things as we see them. Just wanted to mention that my giveaway is still going. We have a week left for entries, so if you haven't yet, go check out the announcement video. I will put it in the iCard right now and down in the description below. You can enter no matter where you live. It is open internationally, but you must be subscribed, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Leave a like, leave a comment, all that good stuff. I love reading your comments. I try my best to reply, and I do always pin a comment, so you know, it could be yours. So here I'm using a circle tool to put some guides in for those circles. If you don't have one, you can eyeball it, you can bring out that compass again, anything that works. I like to keep my lines fairly thin on these mandalas that are intended for coloring, but sometimes it wobbles or it just doesn't look good and you have to thicken it up. Line thickness is completely your choice. Do what you want to do with it. If you're not adding color, you want a tighter, more interesting look, by all means vary your line width a lot more. Add thicker lines, add shading. You can even introduce a black colored pencil and really add like a drop shadow blurred effect, which is really cool. I did that in my peacock mandala, so I will link that one as well if you want to go see what I'm talking about. So the day this video goes live, October 11th, happens to be my daughter's first birthday. Where did the year go? So, if you don't really know what to comment down below, but you want to comment, how about wishing my daughter Dorothy a happy first birthday? At this point, I am doing those very classic, seen in almost every mandala, curved triangles. I don't know if this shape has a special name or not, but I try to incorporate them somewhere into every mandala because they seem to be very important to mandalas. And at this point I regretted my decision to join them up. I thought it looked pretty dumb, but I think the additions I make afterwards make it kind of sort of work. The scales I'm adding here are exactly the same shape, just drawn upside down and much smaller. Notice how I'm connecting points to points. Can you believe this is sped up 10 times? This is another thing I really love doing in mandalas. It's a little time consuming, but it's not that difficult, and I think it really adds a lot of interest to the piece. Just filling in that arc with a whole bunch of circles that are exactly as tall, wide, whatever you want to say, as the arc they're in, and then filling in all of the gaps outside of the circles. Alright, erasing time. You're about to see why I don't normally use that red Col-Erase. It doesn't erase completely, and that's okay if I'm going to be coloring over top of it in warm colors, but in this case, when I scan this for the coloring book, I'm gonna have to take it into Photoshop and remove the red hue to clean it up. Just adding some final little details here. I like to play with the different nib sizes and add some fade out dot patterns into a lot of my pieces. And these circles just needed something. And there we go. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.